Hello and welcome to the Catholic Moments Podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 31 of Catholic Moments, the podcast where we talk about all things faith, family, and fun from a Catholic perspective. Welcome to London Adventure Part 3, where we'll visit Shakespeare's Globe Theatre and ring in the new year.
And now, here's your host and my mom, Lisa Hendy.
Thank you, Eric, and thank you to Teresa Smith. And here's another day in London.
So it's Monday morning, New Year's Eve, and we're in the tube station. We're on our way to the Shakespeare Globe Theatre this morning. Got another street performer here. We had a great outing last night at the Irish session at the Sudbury Inn. Oh, it looks like the boys want to stop and listen. So today, since it's New Year's Eve, we're going to be exploring the city a little bit and then running out tonight to Trafalgar Square to celebrate the New Year. We've been hearing from a lot of people that that's the place to be tonight, so we're planning on doing that.
Globe Theatre. My name's Simon. I'll be taking you to the theatre today. Okay, just to set the scene, imagine, if you will, we're in Shakespeare's time, late 1500s, early 1600s. This is the city of London. St. Paul's, you see there, was the center of Londinium, as the Romans called it. That's St. Paul's, the fourth version. St. Paul's of Elizabethan times was a massive Gothic structure with a big spire on top of it. London at the time was a walled city, stretching from Blackfriars Bridge down there, around the bend in the river to Tower Hill. About 250,000 people lived within the city walls. The Lord Mayor was in charge of the City of London, along with his cronies, the City Fathers. They were Puritans. It was a time when acting had just started to come inside to theaters. Prior to this, actors used to travel around the country performing on village greens and inns and taverns, collecting pennies. They were thought of little more than vagabonds. They weren't highly thought of at all. When the acting started to come inside to the purpose-built theaters, this started to pose problems for the City Fathers, in that people used to gather outside of the theaters. They would drink, cause noise, make noise. They were rowdy, and it generally interrupted the flow of the way that the City Fathers liked the way things were done. So what they did is they pushed most of the entertainments outside the walls of the city, and a lot of those entertainments came to this side of the river, to Bankside. This was the county of Surrey, under the jurisdiction of the Bishop of Winchester. It was an area of liberty. You could get away with a lot more things over here than you could within the city walls. The area itself was quite pastoral. It was marshy. Where we're standing now, we wouldn't be standing here because the river flowed freely, and it was a third as wide again as it is today. And this is where most of the entertainments had relocated. This is where the gambling dens were, the drinking taverns, brothels, and of course the theaters. There were two ways across the river at the time. One was via London Bridge, which was a smaller stone structure than the London Bridge we know today. It was built up with houses and shops. It was gated at one end, and it was tolled. You had to pay to get across it. And it also had these big, massive spikes at one end, and this is where they kept the heads of the traitors who had been to visit the Tower of London. The Elizabethans were very much into their blood sports, so these gruesome sights of these heads on these spikes didn't bother them too much. One of the things that they did come over here to do in arenas like this was bear baiting and bull baiting, which were extreme blood sports, and they took a great thrill out of that. In fact, Elizabeth I, she was an aficionado of bear baiting. She had a bear baiting arena at Whitehall Palace. So it was the norm. The other way across the river was via this man here. He's the wherryman, or ferryman. He had a flat-bottom wooden boat, and they used to sail up and down the river, taking people back and forth. yelling westward ho, eastward ho. So this is where people would come for their day out. This was a bit like the red light district of its day. All manner of things happened over here. You had to watch out for people, cut purses, stealing off of you. Animals were running free. There were ditches flowing down into the river full of sewage. So it was quite a mucky area over here. But this is where they all came. It was a proper day out, like going to a rock concert or a football match. This theater here is not the original Globe Theater. It's a recreation. It's a vision of an American filmmaker and actor called Sam Wanamaker. Sam was a Shakespearean actor. He came to London in 1949 to make a film. And while he was here, he wanted to see the original Globe Theater. But of course, he didn't find it because at this point, it had been torn down. What he did find was a brass plaque on a brewery wall about 200 meters that way. It said here was the original site of Shakespeare's Globe Theater. He didn't think that this was a fitting enough monument for the man who he considered to be the greatest playwright. So it became part of his life's work to recreate the Globe Theater and the Elizabethan theater-going experience. The names of these people on these stones here are names of the original investors. They each paid £300 to have their names immortalized in stone. When Sam Wanamaker, it was about 1970 when the project really kicked off, and Sam Wanamaker took a proposal to the council. One of the councillors said, Shakespeare is tosh. Why would we need a monument to Shakespeare in this area? Well, the fact of the matter is that Shakespeare lived and worked in this area. This is why we would want a monument to Shakespeare in this area. The councillor said Shakespeare's elitist, it's only for a certain group of people, which is clearly not the case because Shakespeare, he lived amongst the people. He wrote about all different kinds of people in all different stratas of society. Anyway, Sam took an office just a couple streets over there, got the original fundraisers together, and the project started to go forth. And here we have the finished product. The building itself was made using the same materials, the same building methods, and in some cases replicas of the same tools that would have been used in Elizabethan times. You see around the bottom here the bricks holding up the structure. These are called the footings. 36,000 of these bricks, each one is handmade. The seating structures are held together with these vertical beams here. They're each made from one solid oak tree. There's 20 of those, 20 seating bays, which you'll see a lot clearer as soon as we get inside. It's all held together with these wooden pegs that you see there, about 9 inches long, 12,000 of them holding the structure together. There are nails used in the doors for decoration in the seating areas and the stairwells. And the structure is only held together with these wooden pegs. The plastering gives the building the appearance of being round. Without the plastering, it looks a bit like a 3D jigsaw puzzle. One of the great features of this building is the fact that it's got a thatched roof. Because of the Great Fire of London in 1666, thatched roofs are outlawed in the City of London, and they are to this day. This was another one of Sam's battles with the council, but he was a tenacious man. He persevered, got his building up, and he got the thatched roof. One of the most important features on this building for an Elizabethan theater goer was the flagpole, because they would look up from within the city walls, they would see that the flag was flying, and they would know that there was a play today, so over they would come. The flag's up there, there's no play today, but we'll be going inside. If you look around you, you'll see everything is made out of wood. There are about 1,000 English oaks were used building the structure. Everything you see on the stage is made out of wood. All of the effects are painted on. They loved the marbling effect. And if you see in the balusters up here, they're all, each one of those is also handmade and hand-painted. In fact, in Elizabethan times, every inch of the wood inside the theater would have been painted. They would have considered this to be unfinished. They called theaters jewel boxes in those days, and it was part of the fascination to come and actually see something that we would probably consider gaudy, or some people would consider beautiful, depending on your taste. If you look up into the heavens, see all, there's 24 karat gold leaf there. If you look up into the heavens, on the back wall, all the planets of the solar system are represented. Shakespeare wrote all the world's a stage, and all the world is represented on the stage in the Globe Theatre. You will see some of the signs of the zodiac are represented, the sun and the moon and the stars. The way that this stage is set right now is the way that it would have been presented in Elizabethan times. They didn't use any set decoration, not like the directors today. They use the space how they see fit. Each director uses it the way he wants. But this is the way that it would have been, as plain as it is now. This stage could have been anything. It could have been Elsinore, the Forest of Arden, the city of Venice, anything that it wanted to be. And the thing is, the wonderful thing about Shakespeare's writing is he always allowed you to know exactly where we were, what the setting was, what time of day it was, what year it was, what city we were in. The thing about Shakespeare is that while it's wonderful to read, there is more information if you're listening to it, and it was about the words, and that's what people came to hear. They actually came to hear a play. In Hamlet, Shakespeare writes about the acting experience, the theater-going experience, and Hamlet says, "Come, let us hear a play," which is what you did. A bit like we listen to radio plays today. And you know, all the effects that are painted on the ceiling, in the heavens, these were used for tools from the actors, like in Romeo and Juliet. Romeo is forever speaking of the stars and to the stars, and there he has his little aid. So here we are, sitting in some of the best seats in the house. They are. But in Elizabethan times, that wasn't the case. The best seats in the house were, in fact, the two rooms on either end of the back wall of the stage. These were the Lord's rooms. The Lord Mayor, this is where he used to sit, him and the city fathers. These are the guys that pushed most of the entertainments outside the walls of the city. They began to realize how popular coming inside to the theater was. And of course, being politicians, they learned how to use it to their advantage. So of course, they had to take to the stage to get to their seats. So what they would do is they would arrive late, they would take to the stage, they would stop the actors, say, what's the story, what's the plot, what's going on? The actors would stop and tell them, and then they would take to their seats. So of course, they had been seen by all 3,000 people that were in the theater. The balcony in the middle there is the musicians' gallery, commonly known in the theater as Juliet's balcony. Music is an integral part of Shakespeare's plays, and all music is played live today as it was in Shakespeare's day. The two rooms on either side of the stage are the gentlemen's rooms, in a tradition that upholds today. They aren't the best seats in the house. You don't get the best view from them. It costs a little bit more money. And of course, if you're sitting there, you're also able to be seen by more people. The Queen sat over there for our opening night's performance in 1997. We broke ground in 1987. It took 10 years from beginning to end. In 1997, we opened with a production of Triumph and Mirth. The first Shakespeare play that was performed here was Henry V. The area back behind the stage where the doors are open, you can see back there, that was the tiring house. That's where the actors used to rest and dress. It's also where they used to keep a thing called a plait, which was nailed to a beam in the backstage area. And this set out the order of the play, saying which actors were needed and what scenes, what props were needed. Acting was a very different proposition back then. The actors were putting on a different play every day. They wouldn't have had the direction or the rehearsal time that we had. They would work from a rolled up scroll called a cue script, which had their entire part on it and 3 previous words to the previous speech that they had to listen out for. So, you know, if they say that acting is about living in the moment, there couldn't be any better way of being in the moment than listening out for 3 words when the stage is full of other actors. Today, that leads back into the green room. There's an elevator back there. It's all the modern conveniences that actors need to get up and running. All plays were performed during daylight hours. Today, because we do evening performances, one of our modern concessions is we have the lighting. and we have the effect of daylight for our evening performances, so we still have the full Elizabethan experience. If it rains, everybody gets wet. The groundlings get wet. Not everybody. The people who are sitting under here don't get wet, but the groundlings get wet. They're not allowed to use umbrellas for health and safety reasons. The show goes on no matter what the weather throughout our season. Our season runs from April until October. We do provide them with plastic mats when it's raining, but those who want stay. Most people do. We've never stopped the performance because of the weather. So what happens in the theater now is last season we did 3 Shakespeare plays and 2 plays of newer writing. This coming up season we're going to be doing 4 Shakespeare plays. Each play has its own director and its own cast. We don't have a company of actors like they do at the RSC because we're only operational 6 months out of the year. The actors go away and do other things. Mind you, we do have actors that come back year after year. We have a creative director, Dominic Dromgoole, who oversees everything. But each play is the vision of the individual director. And they use the space as they want. As I said, in Shakespeare's time, they would have confined all the action to the stage area. And today, anything goes. There's add-ons onto the stage. We did a production of Merchant of Venice this year. Those rings down there that everybody always asks about. We asked too in the beginning, what are these rings for? They were never used. It was just part of the set decoration for, we had the Rialto Bridge coming out. This was the canal. So it was more for atmospherics than anything else. We did a production of Love's Labour's Lost this year, which was set in big forest. We had 2 walkways coming out into the yard here. So the people would, standing about there, leaning on the stage. The Pillars of Hercules turned into 2 big oak trees. They hung some tapestries at the top with branches going up. So yeah, each director uses the space how they want. Some of the purists, they don't think that that's such a great idea, but we always have people like that. During our production of The Merchant of Venice, while there was action going on stage, there was a big carnival scene in the middle of the play. Some of the musicians and actors were out on the piazza, and the music would start up, the actors would get louder and louder, and they would burst in and make their way through the crowds and take to the stage. So it's a really exciting place to see theater. It's very immediate. It's not interactive, but the audience are involved in what's going on, and you can just tell just by sitting up here that you can become part of the action, and it's very different from an actor's perspective. If you're on a stage and you have like 600 people at your feet, if you're doing Hamlet's to be or not to be speech, and you have people right at your feet, it takes on a different meaning. And in the Henry plays, when King Henry is exhorting troops to battle, and you've got these people at your feet, and the energy raises. It's a very exciting place to see a piece of theater, and if you're ever here in those months, it's a wonderful thing to do.
So we're here inside of the Shakespeare exhibits now. We've just been through the tour, and inside of the gallery they have exhibits on costuming and musical instruments, what the area of the time was like, the history of the original Globe Theater. Very informative exhibits that I think would be a wonderful thing for my kids as they get ready to study Shakespeare in junior high and high school. I think this will be a wonderful reference point for them in their studies. Right now we're in the middle of an exhibit about the musical instruments that were used in Shakespeare theatrical works. And of course the musicians that live in my house like this section of the exhibit. One of the features of this museum is that they have listening rooms where you can take in the sound of someone reciting from Shakespeare plays. So there's so many to choose from. I'm going to just push a button here and see who we come up with. This is Richard Burton from The Tempest.
These are actors, as I foretold you, were all spirits, and they melted into air, into thin air. We are such stuff as dreams are made on, and our little life is rounded with a sleep.
And we'll try one more, Peggy Ashcroft from Romeo and Juliet.
Farewell. God knows when we shall meet again. I have a faint, cold fear thrills through my veins. It almost freezes up the heat of life. Shall I not then visit?
Fascinating. Really neat to hear these different voices speaking Shakespeare. It's part of the National Archives of Sound. Very beautiful. Just one last one. This is Marlon Brando. And he is doing Julius Caesar.
Lend Roman's countrymen, lend me your ears!
Not bad for old Marlon Brando.
Caesar not to praise him. The evil that men do lives after them. The good is oft interred with their bones. So let it be with Caesar. The noble Brutus hath told you Caesar was ambitious. If it was so, it was a grievous fault. And grievously hath Caesar answered it. Here on the leave of Brutus and the rest, for Brutus is an honorable man. So are they all honorable men.
So right now we're down doing some beachcombing along the edge of the Thames, and we found all kinds of interesting things, including a human femur, a horse's jawbone, several old pieces of pipes and stems from many years ago, probably a ton of old pottery and dishes, tile work, beautifully painted things. And we actually just spoke with a gentleman and his daughter who were beachcombing as well, and he had an old Portuguese passport, an English driver's license, and the find of the day that he had was a 50-year-old handgun. So he's now looking for a police officer to turn that over to. You never know what you can find down here. It's really interesting. So my children are having a great time hunting along the banks of the Thames. We just finished walking through the Royal Courts of Justice building, which thankfully was open today. Eric is a big Dickens reader, and he'd wanted to visit there because he's currently reading The Bleak House, and the Royal Courts are featured in that book. It's amazing when you stroll the building. It was actually empty today because there's no courts in session, and we had it all to ourselves, which was really brought the overall size of the building into perspective. You feel very small. They have a very cool display of old judges' robes and the wigs that they wear, the powdered wigs, which actually are still worn today by the justices and the solicitors in the various cases. And we saw in a nearby building one of the garment makers where they actually make the robes and hand create those wigs from horsehair. So that was a very interesting little visit for the Law and Order fans who live in my house. We just wandered into this scene in Covent Gardens. Pretty amazing to see the whole crowd singing along with this 4-piece string quartet. Actually, 6-piece. 3 violins, a cello, a bass, and a viola. Pretty cool. So what kind of self-respecting SQPN podcaster would come to London without a visit to the Apple Store, which is where I am right now? It's actually New Year's Eve, and We're on the countdown. There's I think it's about 6 o'clock p.m. right now, so we're counting down the hours till midnight tonight, and figured we'd come in here and pop in, and I wanted to check on how the fund drive is going, and I see that Greg is doing some kind of an online marathon, so I wish I could hear the sound of what he's saying, hoping that things are going well. And the Mac store here, the Apple store, is pretty big, 2 stories, lots of people checking out all the products, and I am going to go check my email, so we'll check in again a little closer to midnight. Well, we're back in the tube station now, heading away from one of the busiest parts of town tonight, Oxford Circus. We were just at the Apple store and checking email, and checked in with the SQPN live broadcasting on Ustream. It seems that Father Roderick and Greg and Jennifer Willits and Mac and Catherine from Catholic in a Small Town are pulling 19 straight hours of podcasting goodness to round out the SQPN giving drive. Hopefully I'll be able to, between now and tomorrow, get some of this pulled together into podcast form and get it posted online so that you guys have your regular Wednesday Catholic Moments podcast. We do have several more days of our trip left, so be sharing some more recollections on that, but it was really fun to pop into the Ustream chat room. If you haven't done that, you guys need to check it out, because it's really an enjoyable way to spend a few minutes chatting with friends and checking in with the SQPN gang. So, about to get on the tube. We're in the tube station, 10:30 on New Year's Eve, headed towards the embankment where we're going to go watch the New Year's Eve fireworks to ring in the new year. I can't describe to you how many people are down here and how crazy everybody is. It's truly a party scene, and this is at King's Cross Station, which is one of the outlying stations, so I can't imagine how busy it's going to be where we're going. Oh, our subway's here, so I'm going to jump on. So we're here in Trafalgar Square with about what seems like 1 million other Londoners getting ready to swing in the new year. We took the tube to Leicester Square and got off there, and it's just a sea of people, and then swarmed over to here where the crowd is gathering. I think it's about 11 o'clock right now, and they've got live music playing and bobbies absolutely everywhere, so I'm feeling very safe and secure. And the square is all lit up. There's a big Christmas tree in the center. Tons of people. Everybody seems to be in very good spirits, getting ready for the new year. We're going to stay here for a few more minutes, and then we're going to head over to the embankment so we can see the fireworks over the River Thames. So we'll report back in from there. Get ready to count in the new year. So we've passed through several closed down streets. They have traffic completely shut off, and now we're walking with tons of people over towards Big Ben, where we're going to watch the fireworks. We're just in a sea of people surrounded by celebrators, and it's about 11:15 now. Everywhere you look, people getting ready to ring in the new year. I think we're getting near the countdown. They've started a big television screen. We're out in St. James Park. We can see Big Ben and the London Eye. We're not exactly right at the river because the crowd was just too thick to go any farther down there. So we found a nice spot in the park, and we have a great view of the sky. There was a light rain, but it seems to have stopped now, which is great. So we're going to have no umbrellas in front of us and a clear view of the fireworks. We're looking forward to seeing them. Very close to the new year. Do you hear Big Ben ringing? Less than probably about 10 seconds. Wow, look at the fireworks. Can you hold this for a sec so I can take a picture? this. So the fireworks have been going on for about 5 minutes. They're actually shooting them off of the London Eye Ferris wheel. And there have been several large blasts. I think we might be gearing up here for the grand finale of the fireworks show. The sky is just filled with different colors. It's very beautiful. Great way to start the new year.
Thanks for listening. We'd love to hear any feedback or suggestions that you have for the podcast. Please visit us at catholicmoments.com or email us at catholicmoments@mac.com. And until next time, remember to make every moment count.